Hello everyone, welcome back to another virtual farm tour here at Chatsworth Farm. We're going to start inside one of our rooster houses, or the rooster house. They're not in here at the moment. I kicked them all to the back so we can check out the kittens. I moved the kittens from where they were originally in the Goose Barn. Since we have quite a few more geese who've decided to start nesting, and it's safer for both the kittens and the goslings when they start to arrive for both species to be separate. So the roosters don't have any issues, and the mother cat won't have any issues with the roosters in here. So I put them in a different house. They started to open up their eyes a few days ago, so I wanted to show you that, since it's quite neat to see how they go from having no eyesight to their eyes just barely being open. So we'll switch you over and we'll take a look at the kittens. It is a bit dark, but I'll bring them out to where it's a little brighter. So the mother cat has just got in here and she's starting to feed her kittens. So it's really difficult to tell with farm cats or any other tame animals, like a dog or a cat, as far as how often they feed their kittens. It just kind of depends on their mood and how much time they decide they want to spend with their babies. So I think she's been away from her kittens for maybe half an hour or an hour or so. So they're pretty hungry. So we'll check out this one kitten. And you can see, we'll turn him, you can see he has one eye open and one eye is still closed. So sometimes they'll open up at the same time, and other times it'll be a little bit mismatched. So they look a little funny. But they're growing very well. They're getting pretty chunky. So you can see they're not as tiny as they once were. And what we might do is actually set the kitten down over here, and we'll see if the mother will come pick it up, because that's a really neat thing to watch. So she's deciding that her kitten is getting a little too far out of reach. So she's going to hopefully pick it up by the scruff of the neck. So you can see she's grabbing hold, and she picks up her kitten and she takes it back to where it's supposed to be. And kittens have a lot of extra, kittens and also puppies have a lot of extra skin on the back of their necks, so that allows the mothers to be able to pick up their babies easily. So cats do this of all sizes, so house cats to lions, and then dogs will do it as well, and so will wolves and coyotes with their pups. So we have this one. Oh, this one has some excellent eyes open. He's kind of closing them a little bit right now, but there you go. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And we do like to keep the kittens in a space where it is a little bit darker, because as their eyes are opening up, they're still adjusting to the light. So it can be very harsh on their eyes at the very beginning. So we like to keep them in a bit of a darker space, not too much light. And the mothers will also select a place that isn't overly sunny. So we'll put them back. They're not very good at being held at the moment. They're still quite little. And the mom will clean them off. She'll lick them down. And the kittens do what's called kneading. So just like when you're kneading pie dough or baking bread, kittens do this motion when they're nursing on the mother. So you can see this kitten, this little gray one, is doing an excellent example of that. Oh, now he's moved. But they'll move their paws back and forth, and that helps them get more milk on that teat that they're nursing on. The kittens are also starting to get a bit more active. As you can see, this one is moving around a little more. They're kind of rolling around and playing. So they're not as little and helpless as they were a week ago. So there you can see this kitten is kneading. So kneading with a K and an N. So you can see, and the mother will adjust. And I know it's probably a little dark, and I apologize. but I don't want to move the mum over. I also wanted to say a hello to all of the kids watching, as well as any of the residents in some of the long-term care facilities. I know they've been watching and taking an interest in the animals, so I wanted to say hello to everybody there. So now we'll go from the kittens, and we're going to grab this bottle. Today is a little bit better than it was last Sunday when it was incredibly windy. Today is still a little windy. It's not as bad, but it's still not perfect. But we're going to go over to our box over here because we have a new arrival that we've been very excited to share with you. She just arrived here yesterday. And I'll swap it over. It is not this cat, but the cats enjoy the attention. So the special little addition to our farm is this little girl. And I'm going to feed her while she's in here, and I'm hoping it's not going to be too windy. But I'll take the phone down, and that should break some of the wind. So this is a little lamb, and it's probably not the type of lamb that you're used to seeing. This is a haired sheep. So there are two different variations of sheep in terms of their coat. So there are the wool sheep, and those are the sheep that you'd typically see in nursery rhyme books. And when you see pictures of sheep, we got the cat in the way. Those are the kind of sheep that you're going to see, those big white fluffy ones. Those are wool sheep, but then there are also haired sheep. And so this lamb is a haired sheep, and she is a cross between two breeds. One is an American black belly, and the other one is a Mouflon. And hair sheep are a little bit different in a couple of ways. So as you can see, she doesn't have wool, she has hair. And if you want to compare it to anything, it's very similar to the hair of a cat. And then they also have shorter tails, which we'll take a look at her tail once she's done her milk. And unlike wool sheep, which you need to shear every year, hair sheep naturally shed. So just like your dogs or your cats, come springtime, these sheep will naturally shed. So they'll rub up against rocks or buildings, and they'll be able to shed any of their extra hair that they've grown over the winter. And we came about this little girl because we have a neighbor who has this breed of sheep, and the lamb's mother had twins, but unfortunately she only had enough milk for the one lamb. So he asked if we could bottle feed her since he doesn't have the time. So now we have this little lamb, and she's a great addition, and it's excellent to see the difference in their hair and actually the rest of their makeup, so the rest of their body. So it'll be wonderful to see the comparison. Once our ewes start having lambs, we'll be able to show you the difference between a haired lamb and then a wooled lamb. And this is also the first time that we've ever had a haired sheep on our farm, so this is new to us as well. But she'll go back to her original owner at the end of the summer, so we're just going to take care of her during the summer while she still needs to be bottle fed since he's busy working. So you can see she's still kind of hungry. So I'm going to go mix up some more milk for her a little bit later, and I'll feed her, and I'll hopefully get a video of that just in its own, nothing live, but just something separate, and I'll share that with you. And I'll talk a little about the Mouflon breed. So she's half Mouflon, half American black belly, and so both of those are haired sheep breeds. And the Mouflon is an ancient breed that originated in the Mediterranean. And it's thought to be one of the breeds that was the base of most modern breeds. So if you Google Mouflon sheep, you'll find pictures of the adults, and the rams have huge horns. The females have much smaller horns So she'll grow up to have she'll have a smaller set of horns. And she'll turn around and we can see her tail a little bit. So you can kind of see her tail. It's just kind of mixed in with the rest of her hair. But regular wool lambs are born with very long tails. So their tails are about as long as a cat's tail. And not a lot of people know that or realize that because the lamb's tails get docked shortly after they've been born. And the reason their tails are docked are to prevent manure from building up, especially in the wintertime. And in North America, in Canada and the United States, docking the tails is a very common practice. Whereas in Europe and Australia, docking tails isn't as common, and that's because their climate is a little bit warmer and the sheep don't grow as much wool as they do in the colder parts of the world. So this little lamb doesn't have a name yet, so we're working on that. And for the moment, she's in this big crate, so she has lots of room to run around in. And we'll put her in with the rest of the sheep once they start lambing. It just gets a little bit confusing for the ewes if there's a random lamb in their pen. So we want to wait before we add her to the rest of the flock. So we'll wait until there are a few more lambs. Or any lambs at all, since we haven't started yet. But for right now, she's very happy hanging out with the cat. They're about the same size. So she will be a regular on our tours. So we've kind of moved past the cute calves and moved on to the lambs, since they're going to be the ones that are front and center right now. So she's very curious, and she will get to the point where she'll be big enough to even jump out of this box, but for right now she's still not there, but you can see she's trying to just leap up. And when the lambs are this age, so a week or so old, and if they're bottle lambs, you need to feed them around 5 to 6 times a day. And right now she eats, she doesn't drink very much at one time, but she drinks very often throughout the day. Woo. So I'll feed her, it was 5:30 a little while ago, so we'll feed her again probably at 6:30, and then a little bit later on, right before we all go to bed. And then they are able to go the night without having constant feedings, because it can get really difficult to feed constantly throughout the night. So we'll just get up a little bit earlier, give her some milk. I'll give her some milk before I go into work. And then other Chatsworth Farm family members will feed her. So the lambs get the same type of milk powder that the calves do. It's formulated a little bit differently, since cow's milk and ewe's milk are different. They have different properties in them. But it comes in the same kind of bags, same kind of powder consistency. And then we mix it up with warm water. And the bottles that we use to feed lambs are a little bit different, because lambs themselves are quite a bit smaller than calves. You can just use regular pop bottles. So you want to find the pop bottles that have a little bit of a taller, if I can unscrew this, there we go, that have a little bit of a taller neck to them. And then these are the nipples that go on, so they fit just perfectly on here. They're actually meant to go on pop bottles. We just have to watch, because this rubber is quite a bit thinner than it is for calves. The cats will decide that they like to chew on them because there's milk in these bottles and the cats want to get some extra milk. So we have to make sure that we keep these away from the cats, not only for health reasons. We don't want to be transmitting any bacteria between different species, but also because the cats will chew on these and then we're left without any nipples for the lambs. And as the lambs start to get a bit bigger, we start to use larger pop bottles. So these are just bottles that we find when we're collecting bottles, and we keep the good ones and we'll use those to feed the lambs. We'll come back to her at the end of the video for a bit, but we're gonna go take a look at the geese since there have been some crazy developments in terms of how many have decided to make nests. So we're gonna go on over to the geese. We'll actually take a look at the turkey right now because he's here. And I know everybody loves the turkey. He can be a little bit intimidating at times, but he's also very beautiful. So this is a tom turkey, so toms are the males. And that big long thing on the end of his beak is called a snood. And that's only for display purposes. He uses that to attract the females, which unfortunately I don't have a female right now for him. So he's just displaying, hoping that a female might arrive someday. So he fans out his tail feathers, he'll puff out his chest, and he'll scrape his wing feathers on the ground. And we also have our very good friend Lizzie. Say hi, Lizzie. Oh, hi. Come here. So this is our Livestock Guardian Dog, Lizzie. She is a Great Pyrenees, and she's just over a year old. So she's been very interested in the lambs. This is her first season with the lambs, so those are brand new to her. She's quite used to the sheep, but the lambs are something new and different, just like the calves, just much smaller versions of the ewes that she's used to. Luckily, the wind has kind of calmed down a little bit, so I hope the sound quality is better. We'll go with better. So we're going to pop in to our Goose Barn. So it is fairly dark in here and the sun's behind a few clouds, so that's not going to help with the light situation. Oh, Lizzie. So Lizzie's over here and she's not allowed in the Goose Barn for the reason being that the geese themselves are fine. They're protective enough that they'll let her know that she's getting too close or that she's not allowed to be in here. But they're the eggs in here, and they're just something that are kind of lying around like this nest over here. And to a dog, that's something quite interesting. And so she has to learn that she's not allowed in here. So even though the eggs are pretty much in her reach, as long as she's told she's not allowed in the Goose Barn, she'll respect that and leave the eggs alone until the geese have decided to start setting on that nest. So we'll start counting. So we have the one nest over here, which is empty for right now. The geese just have decided that they don't have enough eggs in there yet. So they're going to keep accumulating them before they start their incubation. So pile of straw, other than eggs, nothing there. Then we have over here one female, two female, and this female that I'm closest to, she just started sitting here. We have the rest of the geese, and they're quite loud. So we'll continue back with her. So she just started sitting here 2 days ago, and I didn't even realize she had eggs here. They hide them very well, mostly because this second goose is over here, and We've been giving them their space so we don't go and interrupt them too often. So that's the reason that this other goose decided to lay here. So she has a number of eggs under her. I'm not quite sure how many this goose has under her, but I believe they're anywhere between 5 and 15. So quite the spread. So we're going to move to the back. And it's all very loud. So then we have 2 females that are in the screen right now that you can see. And so the one just joined these other 2 a few days ago as well. And then the one at the very back, which it's probably very difficult for you to see her, but she's been there the longest. And then they also decided to create a nest over here. So there are some more eggs. So if anyone is around the Vermilion area and decide that they would like to maybe get some goslings for the summer, I should have lots available. In total, I believe there are somewhere between 20 and 30 eggs under all these geese. So we'll see how many goslings I end up with. So I never know how loud it is for anyone who's listening, but when I'm in there, I have to stop talking because I can't even hear myself think when they're all cackling at once. So that when there are periodical pauses within the video when I'm looking at the geese, that's why, because they are so loud that it's almost deafening to a point. But I think if you didn't quite hear as clearly, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 geese who are sitting on eggs right now. So 5 geese that we were able to see, and then there are 2 more nests. And between the 7 nests that there are, I believe they're anywhere between 20 and 30 eggs. So we'll see how many goslings I end up with. Not all the eggs will hatch. Some won't be fertile, so they wouldn't have been fertilized. But I am assuming that a majority of them will be. Some other reasons that they won't hatch, they just won't be at the right temperature. Because there are so many geese sharing nest sites, so there were 3 in the one, eggs will often get moved around, or they'll get lost in the straw and they won't be completely underneath the female as much as they need to be. So they'll lose heat, and that will kill the embryo because it's lost all that heat which it needs for its development. So there are various reasons why the eggs won't hatch, but in the past the geese have been very productive, and the goslings haven't had any problems at all. So I probably will end up with quite a few goslings, but you never want to count your chickens or your geese before they hatch. So fingers crossed. We'll see how many we end up with. So these are most of the males out here right now. There are a few females, but the majority of the geese out here are males. And the males don't incubate at all. They just breed the females, and then they go off and patrol the yard. They make sure that no one's messing with the females. They do a lot of protection. They provide a lot of protection, so they're very useful in that way. In comparison to roosters. Roosters will breed the females, and that's it. They're done for that embryo that he's fertilized, so they aren't going to assist in the raising or the process of raising the chicks at all, where geese are very active parents, both the males and the females. So the geese will stick around and try and help out as much as they can. And the breed of geese that I have here are Toulouse geese, and as you can see, they all look very similar. And the only real differences that you can see is the size. So you can only tell the males from the females without getting up close and personal with them is pretty much just by their size or kind of their personality. I'm able to kind of tell which are the males and which are the females. But some of the younger ones that still haven't fully matured yet are difficult to tell apart. So I'm not sure if they're males or females unless I see them actively sitting on a nest, and then I'll know it's a female. So they're quite a bit quieter once we get away from the nesting sites. But they do hiss at you, so just kind of like a snake. They let out a hissing noise. And they can be a little bit intimidating. But as long as you give them their space, they're not going to be too bad. They do start to get very protective once their goslings hatch. So even though I might have some goslings in the next couple weeks or so, I'm going to try very hard to get some for all of you guys to see, because they're not something like the lambs or the chicks where I can just go up and grab. It takes a little bit of coordinated time and effort to get a gosling away from its mother because they are such good parents. So that'll be my project one day once all the goslings hatch. I'm in the hen house now. And most of the hens are back in here. They're getting ready to roost, so they're getting ready to go to bed for the night. They go in quite early, especially on days where it's overcast and it's not as nice outside. They decide to turn in a little bit earlier than the geese and the ducks do. And these are their nest boxes. So this is where they lay their eggs every day. And chickens are creatures of habit, so they will lay their eggs in these nest boxes every day, and for the most part they'll try and pick the same nest box to lay their egg in. There are times where a hen will decide to go off and try something different, and they'll start laying eggs around the yard. And that can make it really difficult because you'll realize that your egg production is either slowing down or something's happened, but then you'll come across this huge stash of eggs that the hens have decided to lay in the most obscure and inaccessible place. So as long as the hens aren't let out too early, I like to let them out around 10 o'clock in the morning or sometimes noon. As it gets later in the summer, I'll open their coop up a little bit later so they have a chance to lay their eggs inside the hen house rather than out around the yard. But right now they're still on a fairly regular schedule, and they'll lay their eggs in the boxes, but you just have to watch if you're noticing that your egg production is going down. That can be one of the reasons why. So here we have two of our cats. This one in front of us is Lil Pump. We have some very creative names for a few of our cats. And we all kind of agree that he is the cutest of all of our cats. He is was born in October, so a little bit of a late kitten. It was the cat's second litter of the year, but he's quite the character. And we have our turkey back here. So the turkey goes in with the hens, And even though he looks a little bit clumsy or not as agile as the hens are, he's still able to hop up all the way to the top roost there. So where those hens are at the back, the turkey's able to hop up there, and he spends the night up there with the hens. He takes up far more room than they do, but they don't mind sharing that space together. And since all the snow, or practically all the snow, has melted and green grass and weeds are starting to grow, the hens start to expand their search for insects and good things to eat. So they're able to roam around the yard wherever they'd like. They always stay fairly close to the buildings, as they know that that's a safe place to stay. There are no predators around. So as long as they don't go too far, they're pretty much, they don't have to worry about something coming and getting them. That's one of the reasons why we have the dog, so she protects not only the larger livestock, but the chickens as well. And then the geese are also excellent at predator control, or just alarming something else that there's a predator around, whether that's the dog or whether that's the farmers. So in here I have, this is our third chicken house, so I have 3 chicken houses and then the goose house. And in here right now I have 2 of the hens that are sitting on eggs. So I showed them a little bit earlier. So these hens are setting, so they're sitting and incubating their eggs just like the geese are. But they get put into a cage just so they are offered a little bit more protection, since they don't hiss, they don't snap at you like the geese do. So just giving them a little bit of a safer environment for them to incubate their eggs in, and I don't have to worry about anything happening. So I have the 1 hen in here, and then I have a second hen in here. So you can see they really hunker down, and one of the differences between the hens to the geese is the hens try to make themselves as small and unnoticeable as possible, where the geese will get quite loud and noisy once they've realized that you know they're there, where the hens will try and stay as motionless and quiet so that you don't realize that they're sitting on nests, since this exposes them to a lot of dangers when they're sitting on their nests. So it's a very critical time that they stay quiet and not draw any attention to themselves. So these hens have been sitting on their eggs now for almost 2 weeks. So I believe they have, I'm trying to remember what day their hatch date is, but I believe it's the 18th and the 19th of May. So the hens incubation period, or for chickens, is 21 days in comparison to geese, which are 35. So we should be getting some chicks hopefully very soon. I checked on these eggs underneath the hens a few days ago, so that means you take the egg out and you your phone's flashlight and put it up against the egg, and you can see the inside. So if you do that with any eggs at home, it'll work. You're not going to be able to see any chick developing because they haven't been fertilized and they've been sitting on the counter for a while. But if you take a flashlight and you put it up to either point of the egg, preferably the rounder point, you'll be able to see the inside. So that's what you do with fertilized eggs, is you're able to candle them. And you put the light up, you'll shine it in, and if you can't really see anything, if it looks really dark, or if you see some spider veins, that means that the embryo is starting to develop. It's growing inside the egg and everything is going well. If you see a clear egg, that's not a good sign. It means that the egg hasn't either been fertilized or something has happened and it's not able to develop properly. So you only start to see the spider veins or the darker pieces inside the shell after a few days. So on the first day of incubation, you're not going to see anything. So there's no point in candling. I always kind of candle around the 2-week period. Then you can get a really good sense of how many eggs are fertilized and are developing properly. And I checked under the one hen, and I didn't mark all of them down, but I kind of felt around and pretty much counted all of them. She has 10 underneath her, and the ones that I checked looked all great. So I'm very happy, and I'm confident that we should be able to get some chicks from her. And once they hatch out, the chicks will stay with the hen. We'll put them in another little pen so they're able to get grass. And we just move it around the yard and move it around the yard every day so they can get some fresh grass and all the insects and bugs. But for the first few days, they just will stay in these cages that I have for the hens once they can get big enough, and they get enough exposure to all the elements, because you don't want to stick the little chicks outside with the hen right away. That's pretty much all for tonight's virtual farm tour. I'm sorry we weren't able to have it yesterday, but we had some issues with cell service pretty much for the whole day, so I'm glad we were able to do it tonight. I was a little bit worried about the wind conditions. It's not too bad, but I think it'll still be iffy if I go outside and try and show you some more things. But we can do that on Sunday. We'll have lots of time, and we're able to do a bit more. We'll check on the sheep. We're hoping to shear them this weekend, so if we can get a live of that, that'll be really exciting. It's something very interesting to watch if you've never seen a sheep being sheared before. What else have we got? We have the lambs to look forward to. We'll show you more of our new haired lamb. And actually, I promised to go show her at the end of the video, so we'll go back and check on her. It's a good thing I remember that. And at night, we always close up all the ducks, geese, turkey, and hens. So really, we don't have to do too much. They all put themselves inside, which is incredibly handy. It's their home, and they know that that's a safe place to go back and spend their nights. So they put themselves back in, and all we have to do is shut the door. The geese do like to spend a lot of their time outside, so sometimes we have to coax them in a bit more. They're usually around the front area of their house, so we just have to shoo them in. But here is our lovely little Mouflon American black-bellied cross lamb. So we'll show her many more times, and right now I'm going to go and mix up a bit more milk for her since she drank the rest of her bottle that I had. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Tune in on Sunday at 1:30 for another tour. Take care and stay safe and have a great evening. Bye.